What's going on, guys? Hudi here with Level Up Gaming, and today we're going to be talking about something very important depending on which agent you're playing, okay? If you're playing Killjoy or Cypher, then this is extremely important and you need to listen up. I really cannot emphasize the importance of having a default setup on attack when you're playing Killjoy and Cypher. The importance of this is that whether you're distracted, focusing on your buy or your upcoming strategy, or you just need something that you're doing consistently that works for covering your team's back, you need to have a default that helps you take your mind off of thinking about one more thing when you're on attack, right? Maybe you're also trying to in-game lead in random queue, solo queue, or maybe you're also trying to rally your teammates, right? And so you're not thinking about like exactly where the enemy's pushing all the time and what is the best setup to be using right this second. And so having that good default that you can just do without thinking about it is really important. It's also good because your good default that you're using should cover the majority of cases for like a flank, for instance, if you're playing Cypher, or a flank if you're playing Killjoy, right? So what we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to be taking a look at all of the default setups that I use on attack for both Killjoy and Cypher. And this is going to be great because you're going to get to see the setups that I use that pretty much cover the majority of cases in terms of getting flanked on every map when you're attacking. And I'll talk about them as I show you them so that you understand my mindset for my placements, okay? So let's get right into that and let's take a look. As you guys can see here, we're going to be starting off with Cypher on Ascent. And as we go through this loading screen, don't forget to hit that like button for me. I really appreciate it. It really helps this video. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, okay? Also really helps. And I appreciate all of your support. We recently hit 2K subs on YouTube here, and that's mind-blowing. That's just crazy to me. But anyways, so we're here as Cypher, right? So as Cypher, if I have both my trap wires, what I'm going to be doing instantly is I'm going to be running over to the A side of the map, and I'm going to be placing this trap wire right here, okay? So what's good about this trap wire is you can place it pretty quickly. If you know the height, you don't need to do the head trick. I know it's like roughly right here. I can pretty much do it perfectly without error every time. They're going to trigger this if they try to push out of A, if they try to push A from mid, pretty much wherever they are, unless they jump over it like this, but that's a lot of work. It kills a lot of time and it makes a lot of noise while doing so. You can't do that silently, so that's okay. Next, we're going to run over to B again during the buy round here, and I'm going to place one of two trap wires depending on, you know, whether or not they've been triggering or destroying my trap wires a lot during the beginning of the rounds, okay? I'm going to place this trap wire by default first. This is my normal default trap wire. Sometimes raised nades or Soviet darts are coming in here a lot and destroying this, so it's kind of pointless. So instead, I'll place something like this.
This goes here.
The problem with this trap wire is that essentially they could literally walk all the way out of B main before ever triggering it. So if you're pushed up in mid, if you're pushing A, this will still let you know that they've pushed B main, right? Or if you're pushed into B and you want to watch your flank, this will let you know if they're pushing up behind you still, because they can't jump over it in any nifty way without using an ability of some sort. But that being said, if you're just chilling over here in connector and they push out a B main, they could technically kill you. So you need to be cognizant of that. So now we're going to be taking a look at Killjoy on Ascent, okay? So the default Killjoy setup on Ascent for me, something I'm going to do every round by default without thinking about it to watch the flank, right? I'm going to run over here. I'm going to place this alarm bot here. This alarm bot is great because it watches the flank pushing out of here, and it'll also watch the flank pushing this way because they'll either have to destroy it or they'll trigger it. Then I'm going to run on over to B, and this is something I'm doing during the buy round, and while I'm running in between, you know, sides of the map, I'm also buying my weapons, doing whatever I need to do. I'm going to jump up here. I'm going to jump, aim up, and I'm going to place this turret right here. This turret is great. It watches into B main. It watches into mid. It actually watches all the way up onto catwalk, so you'll know if they're pushing catwalk, not just into mid. You'll know if they're flanking you if you're pushing B, and you'll also know if they're pushing out of B. So this is my default setup as Killjoy. This covers every push from either bomb site. It even covers the mid push partially. So essentially, this could be a little bit better than the Cypher setup. The next map we're going to be taking a look at, guys, here is Split. As you can see, we'll be starting off with Cypher. Split is an interesting map because mid control is very important. So actually covering your flanks and covering the A and the B push, which actually happens quite often, is extremely important on this map, especially in solo queue, okay? So make sure you're using that buy time wisely because you've got a lot of ground to cover here. So make sure you're buying while you're running, right? You don't want to be standing still too long. You got to use this time efficiently. I'm going to run over here by A. Depending on whether or not we're pushing A, I might go to B first. And I've got a couple trap wires that I use. I like this one. Lets me know if they're pushing out of A, pushing into A. If we're over here, there's not really any way to jump over it. There's not any way to avoid it unless they destroy it, right? If they're destroying this one with a nade or a Sova dart early a lot, then I'm going to change it up. I might do something like this. The only problem is then they can push into our spawn without being noticed. So you have to be careful there. So now you're going to go ahead and run on over to A after you have that trap wire placed over here. So we're going to come over to A, and what we're going to do is we're either going to place this trap wire down here, which is the best, but what a lot of people want to do is they want to place this trap wire. And the reason this trap wire is actually really bad is because they can jump on top of this little washing machine and actually come right down around it without making any sound. So you don't want to place that one. So what are the alternatives? This one is decent. It covers the push out of B into mid, right? The problem with this one is if they're pushing mid because you're in B, they can jump right over it, no problem. And they can also push into your spawn, no problem. So it's got its own problems. So what's the solution to this then? The solution to this is not something over here on this thing. And even this wall, placing this one here is decent. It covers the push out of B completely, so they can't get into your spawn and they can't get to mid without triggering this, right? But if they're coming this way, say you've pushed B and they're coming this way, they can still technically jump over it. Now they're going to it's going to waste a lot of time. They're going to come up to it. They're going to be like, oh, there's a trap wire here. They've got to run back. They got to jump up here. They've got to make a bunch of noise. They're going to let you know that they're here anyways. So it's not terrible. But what's better is something like this. So this one is still not like perfect, but it's better. Because this one stops them from getting too far into garage without making a bunch of noise. And if they want to jump over this one, it is actually more difficult. You have to be a pretty good counter strafer. Like you have to be pretty good at straight midair strafing to get over this one. And even then, there's still a pretty decent chance that you trigger it, okay? It's not the easiest to avoid, and you're going to make a bunch of noise avoiding it. So it's a little bit more complex. There's a higher chance that they'll just shoot it instead of triggering it. There's also a really good chance that since it's in a weird location at a weird angle, they'll just trigger it as they run through. Now, I know this isn't ideal because you have to wait until after the barriers go down. But that being said, that's why I kind of do it in the A and then B order on this map, unless I know I'm pushing A. If I know I'm pushing A, I'm going to do this one first, and then I'm going to run over to A and do a setup over there and then push A with my team, right? But this is my default setup in that order. Wait for the barrier to go down, put that up. And that's probably the strongest flank watch that you can use as Cypher. Now, what about Killjoy on this map? So now as Killjoy, what is going to be your default setup, right? I'm going to run over to A, and I'm going to use my alarm bot over here, okay? Now, this is only if you need to watch the A flank with your alarm bot. I know it's not best. You don't want to leave your alarm bot on its own. You want to combine it with a nade or some bullets or something, right? But sometimes you just can't. So I'm going to place this alarm bot here. It's not perfect. They can still see it and shoot it when they get really close to this corner, but them shooting it is still a notification for me, right? I'm going to know they're here. And then I'm going to run over to B really fast. And my ideal turret for B is actually one that covers a lot. So I'm going to place it in this corner like this, okay? And it's really important that you place it at an angle, right? Because the turret has a 180-degree field of view. It can see like this. So if you've placed it in this corner at an angle, it can see down into your spawn, and it can see the B entrance and the mid entrance. If you place it too much like this, it may not make it all the way to your spawn, depending on, you know, whatever the angle with the turret. So as you can see, the turret the way it turns like kind of specifies its field of view. It can see all the way over into our spawn here, and it can see the entrance to mid, and it can see the entrance to B. So you'll know whether or not they're pushing you from your spawn, from mid, or from B. So that's a really strong turret. Next up, guys, we have Bind. Actually, Bind is a good one too, because there's a lot of flanking that goes on Bind. So this is really important. We'll start off again as Cypher. So here we are on attack as Cypher on Bind. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is run on over to A here, and I'm going to place a trap that covers the shower push from A. Okay, this trap is actually pretty decent. If they teleport and they want to flank you short or go through your spawn, it'll trigger. If they come through showers, they'll trigger it. If they're trying to push this way into showers, they'll trigger it. The only thing it doesn't cover is if they teleport and then go into showers. It doesn't cover that, but there's not really a trapwire that covers every single situation over here. So you just need to be aware if you're pushed into showers, maybe move this trapwire up to the shower door with you instead of leaving it here. So after we get this A trapwire down, I'm going to go ahead and run on over to the market area over here and place a trapwire over here. And so there's a lot of different push angles that they can do over here. And depending on how you play this, it's not really possible to cover every single situation. My default setup's going to consist of that trapwire over there and this one aligned with the top of the broomstick here over here. Why I use this one is because you can't jump over it. There's a lot of barrels and stuff you can jump on top of in mid here, and depending on where you put your trapwire over here, they can probably just jump right over it, especially with the elevation here and everything else, right? This one's good because they can't jump over it without using an ability. So if they push from A, they trigger it here. If they are pushing from B and they walk this way, they trigger it or shoot it. Their only option to avoid this one, if they want to flank you on A or on B, is to actually, if they're going to push through B, they have to push all the way through and then through your spawn and then all the way around. It wastes a lot of time, right? And then if they want to push from A, they have to go all the way through your spawn and waste a lot of time. This is my default setup that I'm going to be using no matter what every time. Now, if I know my team is going to be pushing B, I'm going to adjust that setup a little bit, right? So I'm going to use this trapwire, or I'm not going to use this trapwire. If I know we're going to be pushing B, I'm going to be using this trapwire here because I know they can't jump over it coming this direction. Because I know they can't jump over it coming this direction. And then I'm also going to go ahead and place a trapwire out here. And now this one also blocks the same type of push, but through the spawn area, right? That way they can't really come up behind us at all without us knowing unless they come through the teleporter. And that's really loud and we'll know exactly where they're at, right? So those are my two basic default setups as Cypher on this map on attack. Now let's jump over to Killjoy here. So next is Killjoy. The setup is pretty similar, but I think Killjoy has the advantage here. I think she's the better agent for watching your flank here if that's what she's dedicated to doing on attack, right? So what we're going to be doing here is Killjoy is we're going to be placing this alarm bot actually right here in the middle of the walkway. Seems pretty obvious, right? They're going to see it. They're going to shoot it. It's going to get triggered. Yeah, it covers everything. So if they push this way and they want to flank through your spawn, triggered. If they push this way and they want to flank showers, triggered. If they push through showers and they want to flank anywhere, it's going to get triggered. So the great thing about this one is they either have to destroy it or they have to trigger it. Either way, it's going to let you know that they're here. And then we're going to run on over to market again, and we're going to place a turret down in market. So my favorite market turret is actually this one here. What's great about this turret is, again, it covers the A push through market. It covers the B push. It covers if they come up through spawn. It covers pretty much everything over here. The only thing it doesn't cover is the deep spawn push. So if they somehow push through A and then want to push all the way deep through our spawn without ever going into market, we technically would know that they triggered the alarm bot, but we wouldn't know if they were over here for sure because they never triggered the turret, right? Next up, guys, we have Haven, and we're going to be taking a look at Cypher first. And this map is important to watch your flank as well. There's 3 bomb sites, so there's a lot of flanking and pushing that happens potentially by both teams, right? So let's take a look at what the default Cypher setup would be. I think it's pretty straightforward, but there are some common mistakes that people make. So
my ultimate is ready.
So as Cypher, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to C side, and I'm actually going to place this trapwire right here. If you don't want to place this trapwire, actually this one is really, really good as well.
This is a nice spot.
I like to give them a false sense of hope and let them come through the doorway. But if you're afraid of them getting through the doorway and like sitting over here in this corner and just waiting for you, then use this trapwire here. It's going to cover the C push this way or that way, pretty much any direction. It'll make sure you know that someone is pushing C. And then I'm going to run on over here to A. And now this one is the tricky one, right? Since, you know, there's a barrier up at the beginning, a lot of people are like, well, I'll just put a trapwire here. This one's bad. They can jump over this one very easily. You don't want to do that if you don't have to. Same goes for over here, right? They could just jump up on the platform, jump right over it, kind of pointless. So what do you do then? Well, you have a couple options, okay? Your first is to just kind of put it on this doorway to see if they push window. But again, that leaves so much information and so much room open for them to push. What I like to do is I like to do this one last. And since I I also like to drop a cage in this doorway at the beginning of every round. I just wait and do it over here after the barrier goes down, okay? So the game phase will end. I'm instantly going to throw a cage here. Every round is Cypher anyway, so I'm going to be over here at the beginning of every round. And then I'm going to place this trap wire right here. This trap wire is good for blocking the people from coming in this way. And it's good for blocking the people coming out this way. They can destroy it quite easily. And if they are destroying it a lot, you might move it back to like right here instead. A little bit harder to destroy. I mean, still can be destroyed without triggering, but it's harder to destroy. And that's going to be the default setup as Cypher. So what about Killjoy? That covers all the pushes except for the mid push, obviously. But if they push through mid window, want to flank you A, you'll know. If they push through mid, want to flank you C, you'll know. If they push through either A or C, you'll also know, right? So now let's switch to Killjoy. Again, I think this is another map that Killjoy has the advantage in terms of watching the flank.
10 seconds left.
So let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to do with Killjoy, right? So the first thing I'm going to do with Killjoy is I'm going to run over here and I'm going to place this turret. I think right here. Yeah. So what does this turret do? Well, this turret watches the A push. This turret watches the C push. This turret watches the window push. This turret watches the mid push. This turret watches everything. You don't necessarily even need to use your alarm bot if you don't want to. If you want to use your alarm bot, you can place it over here to get an even more early warning sign that an enemy is coming from C, right? But you don't necessarily need to, because that turret is going to see them immediately as they peek and start shooting at them, letting you know that they're here and also being a distraction to them. One thing I see people doing instead of this turret is they like to put it here. And this turret has its problems. It actually has a lot of problems, okay? So it's not the greatest because of this. If I push through mid window, right? And up here, and then I want to flank A, that turret never saw me. It has no idea that I'm even here. I just flanked the enemy team and they had no idea. Again, similarly, if I push out of A, the first thing I'm going to do is push into mid window, right? Well, that turret never saw me. Again, similarly, horrible turret placement because it doesn't block off. It doesn't actually cover what you need to cover. Unless you're going to be putting an alarm bot over here, I would never use that turret. These are the default setups I use on all of the maps on Attack, guys, and I'm not saying you have to use these and never change them at all. You can change them, make modifications as you play the game, as you see how the enemies are playing the game, right? And throughout the rounds, right? You want to change them, you want to switch it up a little bit here and there. But having a default that you jump to, no matter what you're doing, every single attack round will help you really just focus on the things that you need to focus on that aren't your default setup, right? I know a lot of you guys are struggling with playing Killjoy and Cypher. Like you're thinking about a lot of different things at the beginning of the round. You've got 30 seconds in the buy phase. Do I buy a gun? What gun do I buy? How much money do I spend? Are we saving? Are we not saving? Where do I put my trap wire? Where do I put my turret? Should I use my alarm bot? Is that even necessary? Having something that you do by default without thinking about it will really help you have a good setup for your team, or at least a mediocre setup for your team, without having to rush and try and do it after the buy phase and you're not there to trade for your team or help your team out. I hope you guys find this useful. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button for me. It really helps the video out. And make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'd love to see you around a little bit more. If you want to join the community, you want to submit a VOD for VOD review, hit that Discord community link down in the description down below. And make sure you check out my Twitch streams over at twitch.tv/BrianHudi. Again, link down in the description below. We'd love to see you over there if you want to chat more about this kind of stuff with me. I'm always discussing this kind of stuff on stream with people when people are asking me questions or we're doing VOD reviews. So if this is something you would like to see more of, make sure you head on over to twitch.tv/BrianHudi and hit that follow button for me. I love you guys. Thanks for 2K. That's an awesome achievement. I'm super excited about it. We've got big plans coming up in the near future, and I'll see you in the next one.